Our Night Elves, yes. World Tree cinematic speculation. We did do a video on this.
Yep.
Like, it's called a symbol of hope, right? A symbol of hope.
Yeah.
I don't think... basically, Alex Straza says, for soon Azeroth will welcome, the dream is a symbol of hope, and together we shall protect it. Now, whenever I see that and the kind of big, cool spectral tree, I don't think that is them saying the Night Elves will live here.
It's specifically referred to as a new home in some of the 10.0 Green Dragonflight Renown Quest stuff. Malfurion specifically goes out of his way, and I don't know if Dakor's about, or if it's in here. Yep, it is in here. It is in here. Fantastic work. Blah 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 blah. Is it in this one or is it somewhere else? But it is something Malfurion does say about it being a home. Where exactly is it? Is it here? Yes, one day I hope I will stand together with Tyrande before the new world tree, our new home. So obviously they could just say, hey, shut up, Malfurion didn't say that.
Nope.
But
balls.
As far as they're going...
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
I forgot about that because it's such a terminally bad idea for the Night Elves and where you would take their story. Because, yeah, it's just cool. They're out of Kalimdor, their ancestral homeland, the place where the players who play them at the end of a storyline that they pretty much unanimously hated.
Oh, it was bad.
And that was, thrust upon them and was just and now it's just like, oh yeah, Ashenvale, all those places just de facto horde territory.
Yeah, it's like even in the cases where there are, because I've seen people point out there are some, canonically, there are some, Night Elf settlements still active. Like a little bit of Ashenvale being retaken, Featherman Stronghold, some of Fralis, and then things like Hyjal. But Hyjal's neutral.
Yeah, it's Druid.
Moonglade's neutral. So you look and go, okay, well, there's not really that much. And the point is, it's not that people are thinking that from it's the map's hard painted, but it's like if the horde walk in, oh yeah, where are you going to get your reinforcements from? Nowhere, because geographically you're locked off. You're like, oh yeah, we'll just get some from there. Oh, it's on fire. Oh, it's all burnt down. We'll get some from. Oh, all of our allied forces are on the literal other continent.
They're a third-rate power now,
if even.
Yeah. They're so. It's just that thing of world building. So many of them died.
In ways that people don't understand. So many died.
Yeah, I think in ways that the developers themselves almost weren't fully appreciating and taking their own story with seriousness.
Yeah, they aren't prepared to literally go, oh yeah, the Night Elves just had their population reduced by getting close to 3%. It's just it's a lot. It is, oh yeah, that's where they all lived there.
And it's that was teased out through the Blood Elf story.
Yeah.
Whereas now with the Night Elves, it just instantly went to, oh, it's okay. The Night Elf souls, they took them out of Torghast. Now the Night Elves have got to be everyone's friends again, because that's right, because Vin Diesel once said family.
Yeah.
Hope, renewal, family. But the emotional experience of overcoming what should be a sort of trauma at a racial level, just never really. It was just never really portrayed in game that well.
Yeah,
they tried to just do it all through Tyrande, but all of that sucked.
Yeah. Tyrande's not going around she's more like going around. Oh yes, some of the best, some of my beloved Night Elves are gone, and not my people are no longer a race. They're now a small settlement and a half. I mean, that's not exactly true, because I know Ascended there said Fralis is a military strong point. So there's clearly some of them, but also. It's not like there's 15 Night Elves left, but they're also probably the smallest race by number on Azeroth. Outside of I don't know. Well, it's hard to gauge some of the allied races.
Can't really do Azerothian demographics, but point is, there's probably vibrant city of Suramar.
Yeah.
Would Nightborn versus Night Elves? What would the numbers be? It's like one of them had their main population center burn, the other one didn't.
Yeah. Like, did they really bring that many orcs to Azeroth? Yeah, Night Stalker, that's a good question. I would love to never ever think about that or talk about it ever. Because the amount of nitty gritty you get into when you go, well, in 30 years, how many orcs have been born and grown to full length? Are we going to get into a, this is a bit of a strange way to go, but in Northern Ireland, we certainly have ideas over the historic split. The historic split of population between two different
types of elves.
Two different types of elves, and one type of elf, traditionally speaking, knows what contraception is, and the other side are
you've watched the Monty Python, right? Every sperm.
Yeah, by their tenets, do not use it quite as often, and in this case, over the course of time, one population will grow at a much faster rate than the other. I don't think Blizzard ever want to sit down and go, right, how fast do these races breed? Should we consider that as terms of demographics and war demographics and how population settlement works? I don't think they want to do that, and I never want them to ever. I very much like this. Don't think about it. It makes sense somehow, kind of way, I think.
So to go to the topic of, are they just like kind of upping and abandoning? From Ian, who was just going back to Exploring Kalimdor, a very well received book. The Night Elves didn't really retake Darkshore, and there are too few of them left for it to be worth them fighting to take back their land. Is that the justification that they'll give for a resettlement?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Yeah. So then, of course, you got the Seed of Hope quest line, right, where they're doing everything with the seed. And then this one, one day I hope we'll stand together with Tyrande before the new world tree, our new home. And then, immediate reactions. I remember all of these trending on Twitter.
It was a good time.
That was funny.
Yep.
It didn't go down well.
Yeah.
Did not go down well at all.
Not from anyone.
Okay, well, what's this deep dive? Oh, is this the idea of the world tree being like the center of spirituality, and then Night Elves kind of existing across the world in these like important spiritual locations and having some of their own settlements?
Yep.
Yeah. I saw that idea. I feel like the core of where elves are actually, as he says there, it needs to not be this, because this is not Elf Town. This is just, Elf Town is big enchanted forest, Blizz. It's what it has to be. Yeah. You can't take the Night Elves out of their dark, tranquil forest. That's where they are.
They're called Night Elves, not plain elves. Like.
Yeah, plain elves were added in the Burning Crusade.
Yeah. Yeah. Fucking vanilla elves, like. Awful.
Yeah, so who knows? It's one of those things. I remember making a video about post-conflict societies, which funny enough touched on us. Patch 8.2.5, when the Horde Council was formed, and how it looked like the major leaders of Azeroth were just trying to brush over the whole thing and say it's fine and draw a line under it. Where that really, for so many of the people involved, would be a very unrealistic prospect. And if they're doing that story, they actually have to commit and do that story. And a part of doing that story is dealing with all of that trauma. And I think they never really did that, because they immediately went into the Shadowlands and made it about Sylvanas.
Yeah, it's a little bit of...
So it's just bad world building, bad storytelling.
A little bit of overpromise, underdeliver. And some of that is literally their problem of not being able to deliver the sheer amount of content that they want to. Mm-hmm. But even then, you can see with some of it, their idea of content and how they work with content is, and this is a little bit frustrating to say, because it comes across as if I'm complaining about how they're doing content now, which I think is such a worlds ahead of where it used to be. And it's the scattershot approach of, as an example, where was it? I think it was in one of these interviews. Ian said something to the fact, Ian was asked something to the effect of, how do these quests come about? How does this stuff actually get made? And the Bane quest specifically was something that a designer saw an opportunity for, because the natural hook was with a centaur, and then spearheaded the project and led it and went, okay, let's do this. And that is cool, and that's great. And that's how we get those. That's how we get the heritage quests being is good the way they are. But it ends up being a scattershot approach of a lot of individual people doing individual things out and like peppering the world with content, which works really fine. But the part that they're not executing quite as well just yet, maybe the expansion will change this over time because they've planned it and they've got all the stuff coming up. But it's the follow through. It's the, can you get, say half your team is just completely made up numbers. Half your team is doing all the scattershot, all the content, all the here's this, here's all this stuff all around the place. But can you get the other half of your team going, we're going to make a shit ton of content and it's all going to be thematically relevant. It's all going to be from the same seed of idea. It's going to be, right, what are we doing in Dragonflight? We're doing this, and everything leads into that. Everything ties around the same core point. So there's loads of content on one idea or loads of content on one core theme. Like if that was the case in BFA, if there was loads of content on that, on the war, and we had seen lots of different little smaller stories seeing how the Horde dealt with being like split, how, you know, the Alliance dealt with being the Alliance because they do everything right except they're useless. So it's like, maybe we'll get some of that later with, because I think one of the problems is, and here's a good example, is I was about to say Silverman's, read it in chat. Silverman's a good point, but the Primalists. We have had, and maybe this is just because they don't have time to focus on, okay, the Primalists are just going to be like a kind of threat that, you know, show the strength of the Incarnates and the Incarnates don't care about them. But there was some stuff in Thaldraszus, but there was never a real deep dive into the Primalists. Who are the individual Primalists? Why are not the Incarnates? Who are the people who make up the backbone of the army, of the terrorist cell, the Primalists? And that's just, maybe no one had that idea, or maybe it was just a lot of the designers who did the other stuff weren't clued in early enough to go, oh, well, you know, basically I feel like they should have a meeting going, okay, we need like 7 different quests on this theme. Here's the thing. Go like run with it, do whatever you want. But we want you to reinforce these themes across this stuff. Just so it feels like there's a lot of content talking about the actual main stuff, as opposed to being a lot of different content. A lot of different content's good, but a lot of different content would be way better if there was also a lot of content that felt like it was coherent and pointing towards one story. Because if we get, say, the 10.2 and it's an Emerald Dream stuff, and then we get some side content, but we don't feel like we've had our teeth sank into what's happened with the Night Elves properly or the Greens properly or anything, then we're going to leave with the same problem. Despite having more content, it's still going to be, man, thanks for all of the food analogy time. Thanks for all of the buffet dishes, but you actually ran out of the main dish that you had on display that you wanted us to see. There wasn't enough of that for everyone. I feel like that's kind of that's a little bit of how I feel that specifically goes with like the Night Elves and all of that. They go, here's the idea, but they don't give it enough content to sink really into the depth of it. Which when they say, hey, there's a big genocide happening, you're like, can we not gloss over that, please? Yeah, we have like 5 more minutes with it at least.
Yeah.
Come on.
It's just this stuff has ultimately not worked because Blizzard didn't do the hard work. They're trying to tell a civilizational story, but they've only engaged with a few characters and not really in their capacity as leaders of that civilization. And for that reason, they're in tricky territory. Yeah. So I think that's what's up with that. Is there anything else to say? Just that I think sad.
Just that I think my point is sort of backed up by Dr. Frankenberg saying, I don't know if you've seen America when the chocolate fountain runs out of the buffet, it's chaos. That's what it is. The Night Elf fountain has run out and it's chaos.
Oh boy.